Hi guys, so for today I'm gonna be doing a book review on A Game of Thrones. That's the first installment for A Song of Ice and Fire series of George R. Martin. And I just want to preface this by saying that yeah, I've already read the book before, but I've read it like 4 years ago, which caused me to now forget the nitty gritty details and the important stuff that essentially happens in the book. I was in Feast for Crows when I stopped, and when I tried to continue, I forgot, so I just decided to okay, let's just do it. Let's just reread everything. So this is my attempt. This is my journey in rereading the first 4 books of A Song of Ice and Fire. I've finished the series also in HBO. I did not love the ending as much as everyone else did not love it too. It was a tragedy. But I'm proud to say I'm taking on this journey once again to get myself involved with the Game of Thrones universe, the Song of Ice and Fire universe, Westeros. So as you can see, my copy here is paperback. It's tome-like. All books are very much tome-like, but every page counts, man. So I'm gonna go into the details on what I think of the book. We're gonna go to character, then world, then plot, and everything. So,
and bear witness to my vow. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death.
So this book sets up the characters, the world, the story very well by incorporating 8 point of view characters. 8. That's insane, man. But George R. Martin juggles them all well, and beyond juggling them, he really just masterfully plays and pulls the strings so well. Yeah, let's go into these characters. So this is the biggest upside of the book for me and what makes the book quite special. Although there are 8 different characters that we're delving into, it doesn't feel like the story is scrambled. It feels as if all these characters are quite real and they have depth. They have this realistic historical feel to them that not all books can give, and they actually read like they're real historical characters. There's real figures in history, which the author really did base these characters off characters in history, but they still feel originally real nonetheless. So the point of view characters are Ned, or the story kind of pins around. Then there's the Starks, so that's Bran, that's Arya, that's Sansa, and that's Catelyn. And then Tyrion from House Lannister, and Jon Snow, who's the bastard of the Starks, bastard of Ned Stark, and Daenerys. And every single one of them, except for Daenerys, is in the same place at the beginning of the story. They will never be all in the same place ever again, but in the beginning, they're all there. All our point of view characters, except for Daenerys, are attending when King Robert brings his court to Winterfell. So even the characters who aren't point of view, like Renly, Stannis, Littlefinger, Varys, they're all super interesting also. Just seeing these characters play around with each other and mingle with their plots and schemes.
Schemes and plots are the same thing.
And just work their way and snake their way to whatever it is they are doing. It's pretty interesting to see how all these characters have their own minds. George R. Martin makes you believe that every single one of these characters function with a well-functioning mind, so you can relate to them, and the world just naturally sprawls around each character. So I mentioned a while ago that in the beginning they're all in one place, but when these characters get separated, when Jon gets sent to the Wall, Arya, Sansa, and Ned go to King's Landing, Bran and Catelyn are stuck in Winterfell, and Daenerys is roaming around roaming around Essos, and Tyrion goes with Jon to the Wall. It's where the world building truly starts, because we get to see all these different places that are so imaginative, but realistic and logical in some sort of way also.
Gods, this is country.
So the world, so as I mentioned, we get taken to Winterfell, this desolate, isolated place in the north, but it acts as if it's it acts as it is the capital of the North, where the Starks live. We get taken to the mountainous Eyrie and really feel how high it is and how separated it is, how isolated it is from the rest of Westeros. And then Pentos, where Dany is, invades Dothraki and the Dothraki Sea, getting introduced to the culture of the Dothraki, how savage they are and how incredibly masculine and testosterone heavy horse lords and how they dominate the world around them. And George R. R. Martin really built this language, this culture, this setting for all these people to like function well and have very much logical plot lines and all their actions justifiable. Yeah.
I'm not worthy of the honor.
I'm not trying to honor you. I'm trying to get you to run my kingdom while I eat, drink, and haul my way to an early grave.
So the plot is very character driven. George R. R. Martin lets the plot flourish as the characters move across and about their world and interact with different people. And then the actions of everyone, accusing, taking matters into their own hands, eventually leads to the main crux of the next book. The biggest strengths I have noticed with the book is that even though it's a pretty large book, the chapters read well. They read like separate short stories functioning in a larger plot. And these short stories begin and end very much poetically from one and the other. Of course, George R. R. Martin hammers in these dreams that these characters and these people have that speak volumes on what's going to happen, although they're very cryptic and they're very mysterious and mystical. Although if you've watched the series or read the later books, you can call back and say, hey, he mentioned it 2 books before, 1 book before, and that's quite interesting. And the world, one big strength of this book is how the world is super sprawling. It's filled with history. It seems as if I'm reading a history book instead of a fantasy book, because the garden that George R. R. Martin plants has soil that goes very much deep, has roots that are very much deep, with their own songs, their own culture, their own history that's recorded, and their tales and their myths and legends and their own story. And how all of the characters like are essentially playing 4D chess with each other. We can see how this person thinks and how this person thinks and how these people can come together, and you would know it's like chemistry. It's like mixing Coke with Mentos and just like waiting for it to explode, and the excitement that you have in that moment before it does is kind of like what this book does to its readers. Some of the qualms I have with this book, there are some qualms. Some chapters are stronger than others. So the best chapters for me are Tyrion, Jon, Ned, Arya. Those are the best chapters for me. And the chapters that are pretty much lackluster for me are Catelyn and Sansa. And Dany is kind of like a hit or miss sometimes, because the lackluster chapters or POV chapters, they're kind of like watchers, more passive, and they do less action. Like Catelyn. Catelyn does a lot of action in this book, but most of the things that she does is because she is this person who always just reacts to what's happening. Sansa more so is such a reactor, blindsided by her love for Joffrey. We full well know what kind of stuff Joffrey's made out of, and it's not good. It's not good stuff. And loving Ned's chapters because the story revolves around him. All the interesting characters revolve around him, kind of like he's the center of the story, so to say. Even if Robert's the king, Ned is the one that everyone is eyeing for, and he has the attention. The newcomer to King's Landing, it's him. He's in the lion's den. He is the main character of this book. It definitely feels that way, even though we have 8 POV characters. It feels as if he is the main character of this book. And it's good because the main character carries the story with him on his shoulders, and he does so well.
In the name of Robert of the House Baratheon, the first of his name, King of the Andals and the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm.
So my verdict here is that although Game of Thrones is an adult type fantasy, it is one of the best fantasy books ever. I advise the avid fantasy readers out there who haven't yet read this book to go out and read the book, because it's a one-of-a-kind world with a one-of-a-kind story and one-of-their-kind's characters are written in such technical grace. And it does have some troubling adult scenes that may cause disturbance to other readers. That serves as your trigger warning, but the scenes all depicted here are very much realistic and very much bounded in history and what happens in like the medieval world, but like turned into this fantasy world. Yeah, so A Game of Thrones, one of my favorite books to have ever read. I will definitely read the next books in the weeks to come.